Hi, welcome to the Stress Detox podcast. My name is Edie Goditis. I am your host. I support female leaders in stress management and embodiment coaching, host international and local retreats, facilitate workshops for corporate groups focused on stress management for teams. I am also a best-selling author and the host of this awesome podcast. And today, my friend Ashlee is here joining us to do a deep dive into breathwork and all the beautiful ways that it can help us with reducing, managing, and processing stress. So, welcome, Ashlee.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and to share we have so many, similarities. And so I'm excited to share my experiences with all of you as a personal growth coach and a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. I too work with clients one-on-one. We do a lot of stress management, do corporate workshops, and I run a membership as well that is all focused on nervous system regulation and feeling better in our bodies.
I love this. I just
Yeah.
got full body goosebumps. I love it so much. So fun. So, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we dive into some of the questions, I'd love to know, is there a quote or a mantra that you live by or that really stands out for you in your life?
Mm. Yeah, so I love Cheryl Strayed. She is the writer of the book Wild and Tiny Beautiful Things. So there are so many of her quotes, but one of them is like, trust your gut and go bravely. It is one of I have it on my desk downstairs and I just look at it often because that is like, for me, trust my gut and make brave choices. And it's something I remind myself of fairly often.
I love that. That is so timely. So
Hmm.
yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Right now I also have a quote related to bravery that I'm reading all the time from Glennon Doyle. And it's just so true. It's the same idea of like really connecting with the knowing deep within us and
Yeah.
taking those courageous steps to stay in our truth.
Yeah.
So I so love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, what is your relationship with stress and what led you into breathwork and getting certified and exploring this space of wellness with clients?
Yeah. So I would say my relationship with stress has absolutely evolved over the years. I for sure was that really, I want to say high strung, but that's not the right term. It was just like I was a high achiever. I had a plan for my life. I knew all the steps, right? I was very much raised of finish high school, go to university, get a job, do that job, probably forever, and have a family, do all the things. And so I started to really experience stress when I was in university and the course load was getting heavy. I was managing, time with my friends. I was in different relationships. And it just carried with me, right? So then I got married and was starting a family, and those things weren't working out. So my
Right.
stress level went through the roof because I was now taking what I thought I should be doing
Yeah.
and trying to apply it, and it wasn't working. And that's when I noticed my stress was going through the roof
Yeah.
because it was all this pressure I was putting on myself. Then my job at the time, just everything felt like it was unraveling around me. And I knew, like, when I would sit in my car and cry and talk myself into getting out of the car to go into work every day, it's like, this doesn't seem like this is what life is. Or if this is what it is, I'm not here for this. This isn't what I want. So after leaving corporate, getting pregnant, having my son, my stress level has like ebbed and flowed, right? Those moments of, okay, your child is sick, your stress goes up,
Right.
right? You have bills to pay, your stress goes up. But then I'm starting to notice a lot more spaciousness between those stressful moments.
Yeah.
And now my relationship with stress is there are moments of stress and there are moments of none. And there are moments again of stress and then it, goes away again. So I'm in a much better place with stress. And I will attribute a lot of it to the personal growth work I've done, the self awareness
Mhm.
and breath work of helping me regulate a nervous system that I didn't even know needed to be regulated. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm laughing because I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
journeys are quite similar. And it's wild. It's wild learning that we've lived most of our life dysregulated and that
Mhm.
that actually felt normal.
Yes. And
Amazing.
so I think that that's what's so interesting about like my breathwork journey. I did breathwork for the first time and I was so resistant to it. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was super woo and I was not going to do the woo thing. I wanted strategies. My brain was so wired to action and get things done.
Right.
And I was like, why am I going to lay here and breathe? And then I did it and I had a whole body response. And that's what made me go, oh, I think there's more to it than just breathing.
Yeah.
And the more I dug into it, the more I realized, like, oh, there's actually, I can feel peace. I can hear myself. And
Mhm.
here's what I sound like without the cloudiness of everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that that is the first time I really heard myself. And the more I do that now, the more and more I can hear myself and that voice. You know how we always talk about the voice in our head that is like nattering at us in a negative way,
Yeah.
or as I say to my clients, a not helpful way.
Yeah.
Now my voice isn't doing that very often. Still does it because I'm human,
Yeah.
but my voice, I can hear my voice now. That other voice isn't mine.
Yeah. I totally get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
So there's
totally.
probably people listening going, this person's like cray cray, but
No, it's the chatter of the mind versus like the deeper knowing and like whisper of like the
Mhm.
body. And it like starts at like the low abdomen and like
Yeah.
rises up. And then you're like, oh, here she is.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And um, I didn't realize before. So my dysregulated state looked like throat blockage, right?
Right.
Tons of sore throats, tons of losing my voice, tons of, just like my heart was completely closed off. There was no feeling. It was just straight um, defensiveness and anger to protect
Right.
myself. Um, and so that's really how I felt dysregulated and immediately going to overwhelm. So one little thing would change in my calendar, or my kiddo would be sick from school, and it would throw my entire world into overwhelm.
Right.
And now I can just realize, okay, so he's home today. Guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't take me down the
Right.
way it used to
Right.
because I feel so much more aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the power I find with breath work as well is it allows us to remember our inner anchor. It
Mhm.
allows us to really access what I call like our inner sanctuary, where then there is the spaciousness and that sense of peace to really clearly hear that whisper. So it's not a whisper, it actually is a bit louder. And then we're like, okay, I can take this step and make this choice. And it's from that space of integration and like
Mhm.
presence versus constant reactivity.
Yes. I say
So
that to my clients all the time of like, if nothing else, breath work has helped me learn how to respond versus react.
yeah,
And there is a huge difference,
Oh
a
yeah.
huge difference between the two. And
Yeah.
that, even in that, just it feels spacious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I love. Like I have on my wrist, Metta and Sati. You can kind of see them here.
Yeah.
And so Metta is loving kindness and Pali, the Buddhist language, and Sati is inherent goodness, but it also translates to mindfulness in Sanskrit. And mindfulness is the pause between the stimulus and the response. So
Mm,
mindfulness is, like I say, it's that breath that we
yeah.
take before. And so it's beautiful to just the breath is just so freaking powerful. And it's
Mhm.
like often when I work with clients, I'm like, literally, if you just start your day with
Yes.
3 deep breaths and do that before you go to bed, it's going to change your life in a week. Because so often we're not even noticing if we're breathing. We don't even know how we're breathing. It's like if we are breathing, it's in like the clavicular zone and
Yeah.
it's rapid and like everything's crunched. So there is no flow. And so it's beautiful when we can just do like the basic to start to offer that support and that tool for clients to really feel more at peace and like at home. I don't know about you, but with my experience with breath work and meditation and yoga as well, because they all just intersect, it's been a homecoming
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
me, and just the reminder of my own wholeness and of my own power.
Yeah.
And often there's the resistance within like some of the more activated breathwork practices, at least in my experience. It's not as voluntary for me to do as grounded, that's for sure. And from going through that like discomfort, it's like then we access the peacefulness and the clarity on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find a lot of my clients love when we do grounding breath work. They're like, this is so peaceful. And I do. We feel so calm and we feel so at ease. And all of that is beautiful and absolutely necessary, right? It can, really activate that parasympathetic side of our nervous system where we do feel safe and calm, and that's a beautiful spot to be. And I often remind my clients that it's called breath work for a reason, because sometimes breath work is not peaceful and calm,
Yeah.
that we actually need to work our way through it
Yeah.
to get to that peaceful calm. And there is resistance sometimes, right? People are like, that was so much work, or why did my body react that way, or how did I feel? Like, I feel tired now. Like,
Right.
yes, and peace is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Clarity is on the other side of that for a longer duration of time. Like,
Yeah.
that gets to be with you while you worked through releasing anger or releasing old beliefs, or at least even just becoming aware of them,
Yeah.
right? Like, for probably both of us, at some point, we had to become aware of what was causing us so much stress, or what was so misaligned in our lives that we were having a stress response
Yeah.
that was likely chronic, right? Like I said, we all have stress at different times, but chronic stress is not the thing.
No.
So you can't release that if you're not aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say awareness is the first step. It's like from awareness comes the ability to accept and take accountability to then have like choose an action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
it can be uncomfortable. Like, I think
Sure.
for most people, when they talk about, they all want less stress, but they don't necessarily want to do the work
Yeah.
to get there, because that means looking in
Yeah.
and understanding your role in the stress that you have.
Yeah. Totally.
Mhm.
Totally. So I have a question for you then,
Yeah.
because activated breath work is obviously quite a hot topic within the wellness space. And a lot of people, when they hear breath work, automatically think activated and they think that like they need to go through really intense experiences to gain more clarity and like just have the full experience, whatever that's meant to be.
Mm.
And I would just love some of your perspective on what your take is for clients who are like brand new to breath work to all of a sudden just deep dive into activated, and how you navigate and support them, because I know some friends who have done activated breath work having barely done anything in that mindfulness space before and had very intense experiences that were actually re-traumatizing, and then there was no follow-up. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your perspective on that as well.
Yes. So I'm a trauma informed breathwork facilitator, and I went that route on purpose because I think that if the breath is as powerful as we know it is, then it also can be harmful if we don't do it in a supportive, safe environment. And I've had a lot of people actually, I've done some in-person offerings, and I'll get people calling me and just saying like, I don't want to cry and thrash and scream in front of strangers.
Mm,
And they also say I don't want to do that in front of anybody because they know that they're not at a place where they feel safe to do that.
yeah.
Like they're still likely holding judgment towards themselves for having those feelings. And they also don't want to do that in front of other people. So they're going to hold back. And so I've actually stopped right now doing in person, especially if people don't know each other and it's not a curated group because of that. And when I work with people now, I go really slow. And sometimes I get these like high achievers who are like, give it to me. I just let's like plow through my trauma. And I'm like,
It's not
I
how it
I'm
works.
I'm more of a like tiptoe through the tulips kind of girl.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're gonna we're gonna go slow. And they're like, no, let's like get rid of it. Like, I promise you that we will make our way through, but it is not a one and done.
Yeah, no.
So
One
my
tip of the iceberg.
exactly. And I often will say to them, but if I push you
Mm,
when I know you're not ready, you don't know you're not ready, but I know you're not ready, that I could do more damage. So
right.
my advice always is start slow. Learn, even what you suggest to people, three breaths in the morning, three before bed. Start paying attention to your breath before you dive into an intense situation.
Yeah.
And I created the work that I do where I can hold safe space for people consistently. So all of my one-on-one clients, we meet every other week
Yeah.
so that I give them a chance to be held.
Mm,
We go slow, and then they have integration time
yes.
with follow-up and that care. It's like that wraparound service of care. And then we tackle the next piece. And we go from maybe breathing actively for 7 minutes to breathing actively for 30 minutes
Right.
towards the end. But I am not going to start a session with someone who's got trauma, childhood trauma, and do a 30-minute breath session and then peace out. It's just not my way. There are absolutely people who will do that, and I have zero judgment towards that. That's just not me. And I started my business to do what I feel aligned with. And then in my membership, I hold space twice a week for people. So as a group, we come together and we typically do Monday morning focus. So it's about starting our day with breath,
Yeah.
starting our day supported and connected to ourselves.
Yeah.
And then I will typically do a Wednesday afternoon midday breather because Wednesdays, we're actually recording this on a Wednesday. It's like, that's the day the things seem to happen. So we shift, right? Get rid
Yep.
of that. The first half of your week, shift into make changes for the rest of your week. Or I do a Thursday bedtime breath work. And that is a very peaceful, relaxing. So, kind of like you say, start your day with breath work, end your day with breath work.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a really nice way for people to experience breath work in a not intense space
Mhm.
and have the consistency of a, regular practice,
Yeah.
and to know that there's somebody on the other end live holding space for them.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing your process. I think that's amazing. And I definitely am in line with how you see it and how you offer it. I find that's just often a conversation I have with prospects and curious clients and friends about breathwork of
Yeah.
really suggesting and encouraging that they not dive deep into it, because I find slow and steady is really powerful. And that's something that Irene Lyons and her work with
Mm.
like somatic experiencing, that she really speaks to is how trauma, like healing trauma, is not one and done. It's not fast. It's very much like it happened over decades, if not generations. So
Yes.
to heal and integrate that in our body in this time period takes time. And it's a matter of like titrating and really building resilience. And with that, expanding the capacity with like different resources. So as you said, clients feel increasingly more safe to go from like 5 minutes to 7 minutes to 15 to 20 to 30
Yeah.
versus 0 to 1,000. I think that's really beautiful. And also offering the touch points for integration, because that's when it comes through. And that's what I often remind clients as well. Like, even if I've done group settings where it's a workshop, for example, I'll say, like, you just went through this experience that's amazing. And now is when the stuff is going to start to really
Yes.
probably surface. And like, you might cry for the next 3 days. You might feel really angry. You might have all of this stuff come up, different memories, different feelings. This is normal. And also email me if you want support. Like, join this group and message me. This is the part where it's like the not beautiful bit of breath work because you just
Mhm.
brought it all to the surface.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I think it's just so,
And I think what you said is really important too, of like, having a coach or having an accountability partner or having a safe person
mm,
that when all of a sudden you're like, why am I crying for 3 days? And again, that's not always
the
the
case.
experience.
Totally.
But when that's happening to you and you're like, why would I do this? Why would I go through this?
Right.
I was actually fine numbing.
Right. Mhm.
It's really good to have a person like you or me or someone else to just say like, and this is temporary,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Just like working out our muscles and the day after you're like, the heck, I can't walk today. Why would I do that to my body? It's like,
Yeah.
because the day after you're actually going to be okay. And in fact, you're going to be stronger.
Yeah.
And it's the same with any type of emotional healing, or yeah, like it's the same. You might
Yeah.
be a little sore after,
Yeah.
and then you're stronger.
Yeah. And with it too, it's also like rewiring the neural pathways in the brain because we're shifting that circuitry.
Mhm.
So it's like the physical release as well as literally mental changes
Yes.
going on as we're retraining and learning all these things.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I say with share with clients is like, you might not feel tired right now, but if you feel really exhausted later, again, it's normal because this is all happening like behind the scenes, but it's happening as you're adjusting and as you're continuing to practice breathing every day. Like,
Yeah.
you're literally changing how you think and operate. So give yourself grace, give yourself space, stay hydrated. Like, you might not feel you're doing much because it's not a gym workout, but it's a different form of processing and
Yeah.
working other parts. So yeah.
Yeah. And for me, that's part of why I started my membership. It was, and actually just gone through this like name change for it. And it's being called the Mental Fitness Club
I
because
love
I
that.
want people to know that it is like going to the gym, but for your mental and emotional well being.
Yeah,
And it is about the consistency, the you might be tired, but then it's going to get that window is going to shorten. Your window of tolerance is going to expand. And I see this type of work just as, if not more important than going to the gym and
yeah,
what you eat and the people you surround yourself by. And that was like a big driver for me of getting people to do it regularly so that they can experience the benefits of it longer term.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's oh, so good. So good. These practices are amazing. So it's nice that they're becoming more and more mainstreamed.
Mm-hmm.
I know like I was introduced to breath work through yoga because yoga
Okay.
is just called pranayama.
Yeah.
So it's all the different breath practices through that, which was really beautiful, and then learning all these new modalities or like newer for me on top of it to then share. It's
Mm-hmm.
just really amazing. Like there's so much choice within it,
Yes.
which is so beautiful, and there are so many ways we can breathe, and it's so fascinating that like our breath is one of the few automatic systems in the body that we don't think about, but then we have the ability to totally control and influence and change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really neat.
I know. I think that that's kind of the coolest part when we start a session and everyone is breathing naturally, right?
Yeah.
Your body is doing it automatically. And then we get to choose to be intentional with our breath. And then at the end, when we release the breath, our body just is like, okay, cool, I'm here again. I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
And it just takes right back over. There is no there's no conversation that needs to be had. It just does for us. And I think that's it's always such a fascinating experience to have yourself, but also bear witness to.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yes. I love that. I would love to know, what do you find are some of the key benefits to practicing breathwork as like a regular practice?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe some of your perspectives on how it really helps to reduce stress.
Yeah. So I know like anyone can Google, the benefits of breath work. Um, so I'll go based on what I have personally experienced and what I know my clients experience. So for me, it's the ability to shift my mood in the moment. So I can go from feeling quite stressed, or I can have that overwhelmed feeling, or I can feel myself slipping into anger.
Hmm.
And I know that I can use breath to shift away from that, to not hide it,
Right.
not bury it, but just to move through it.
Hmm.
So I can be very intentional with it. It helps me, I can feel my heart rate decrease, right? I can legitimately feel myself calm down. I have experienced way more gratitude in my life and that feeling of abundance, right? And I know so many of us think abundance immediately, we think about wealth. But for me, when I am present with breath work and myself, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's actually abundance all around me.
Right.
And that makes me feel way more grateful. My focus and the clarity of my vision of like, where am I going? What am I doing? What action steps do I need to take?
Mhm.
That is so clear to me. And when I find myself getting distracted or um, getting frantic, not knowing where to focus, breath work is what brings me back. So there's that. And then also for me, it's the sleep. My sleep is amazing. When I practice breath work before going to bed, I release my day and I sleep like I was intended to sleep. Not, this like badge of honor of, oh, I'm an entrepreneur or I'm a mom, so I'm never going to sleep again. No, I sleep is a key ingredient in my life. And when I sleep well, my next day goes well.
100%.
So even in the simple things of when I have a good night's sleep, I'm way more patient with my family. They kind of go hand in hand. When I have a good night's sleep, I want to work out in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm way more motivated because I have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
Breath work also has helped me trust myself. So, as I said at the beginning, that voice in my head that was kind of mean to me and nagging and not helpful has quieted down. And that voice inside of me that is my true, authentic self, I trust it. I trust it so much more. And that self doubt side of things is definitely quieter. When I don't practice breath work regularly, so I go away on vacation, once a year, usually go somewhere hot and it's all inclusive. I don't make the time to do it because I'm like, oh, I'm on vacation. And towards the end of the trip, I can start to find myself losing my patience.
Yep.
And it's silly because the whole point of being on that trip was to be with my family. And now I'm annoyed by my family.
Right.
I'm feeling anxious. I'm not sleeping well. And I was like, why would I take a vacation from the good, healthy habits?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, this is just a lifestyle. It's not a one and done, which I think I've said before, but it is actually just part of my everyday. So
Yeah.
whether I breathe for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or I create space for more of a 20, 30-minute session, it is something I do every day. And when I don't do it, I feel gross.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the simple of it.
And do you find with your practices, your daily practices, is it mostly like grounding and just like landing and arriving, or do you find that like every morning you crave more of like an activated, just like 5 minutes, clear it out and then chill for a bit? Or like when you mentioned breath work before bed, do you find a lot of that is like if you're emptying your day, is it more cleansing and then grounding, or
Yeah.
yeah,
So I find the bedtime ones, I definitely do more of a gratitude, um, grounded practice,
yeah,
very much about inviting in stillness and rest.
yeah,
The mornings, it depends.
yeah,
So oftentimes too, I'll say it probably has a lot to do with my cycle and where I'm at.
yeah,
And, the anxiety that sometimes creeps in the morning. So am I feeling the pressure of business, or are we packing for a vacation and anxiety is creeping in because the to-do list is growing? When I feel that anxiety, I tend to do grounding. I tend to want to feel rooted and calm and realize that there's like space. That's something that's really important to me, that you have space and that decreases that overwhelm.
yeah,
But then there are times where I'm like, okay, like let's get shit done.
yeah,
Let's focus. What's my intention for the day? Where do I want to drive my energy? What can I do today that's going to get me closer to my big vision? And then I like to have a bit more of an activating breath.
yeah,
So again, it comes down to asking myself, what do I need today?
yeah.
And because I practice, I know I can trust myself in that answer.
Right.
Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that make
that's
sense?
great. Totally. Yeah, that's similar to how I operate as well. Because clients will often say or ask, like, what is your routine like? And I was like, well, it varies. And that's why when I do work, I'm not very prescriptive of like, you have to do this and follow it this way. It's like, here are some tools. I'm going to share a variety with you. Pick which one resonates and know that every day is different. So the question, like, what do I need today? like how am I? And just that check-in is for me the guidance for whatever breath is
Yeah.
then practiced.
Uh,
So
did
yeah.
I even do, um, it's like I never do it on a podcast, so I'm not going to do it here, but I will sometimes do like scream breathing when I am really angry and really frustrated. And I know that the answer is not be calm. The answer is move that.
Yeah.
I I will do a couple of things. I might like work out so
Yeah.
that I'm breathing heavily because
Yeah.
it moves that energy. If that's not available to me, I will often like sit on my couch. I will play a like hype up girl angry music. So I usually turn to like Pink or Alanis Morissette and I blast it and I breathe in, and on the exhale, I just scream out.
I
And
love
that
that.
feels so good.
Yeah.
And it's like 3, 4 minutes. Do it twice if you need to. And like it feels so good.
And you do that when no one's home, or you
Absolutely.
warn them that you're doing
I
it.
won't, I don't do it when anyone's home. So I
Yeah.
definitely do it in privacy or I'll do it in my car.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
you know,
find car yelling can be really helpful.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are ways to move and be with all the different emotions.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. That's something I was going to speak to actually. Like when we think of um like sadness can be a heavier energy where we just really need the more grounding breath
Mm-hmm.
and the more like the slowness and the restful practice. Whereas anxiety and anger, it's like those are like needing to move. They're trying to
Yep.
get you to action. Like anxiety stemming from fear, that's coming up to move. Anger is stemming from like boundaries being crossed and really needing to express. And it's like trying to be cool, calm, and collected in that moment and doing grounding breath can sometimes actually just make it worse.
Yeah.
So something, and that said, it's like making sure we have the resourcing and the awareness to recognize like our environment and just check in, like orienting before we then do those more cleansing
Yep.
activated practices, because we want to ensure we feel safe in the space before we do it. But then we want to make sure that we give ourselves permission to say, okay, let's just move this out. And it doesn't mean anything, but it's just allowing the pathway. And I think that's why breath and like movement are so great, because they're just channels to move the energy. And like
Mm-hmm.
we're energy, emotion is energy and motion. We're made of
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
So the more we can give it that support to move it, the better. Yeah. And I love how you shared like scream breathing. One of my favorites is breath of joy. And whenever I do like a somatic breathwork series here in Collingwood. And whenever we're working with anger, it's always like that's always added into it. And then clients will come to the practice and be like, so today or this week was an interesting day. Can we just do some breath of joy at some point? And I'm like,
Yeah.
of course we
Yeah.
can.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Because they're like, I wouldn't normally like do this. So yeah. All right. So I'd love to know what are some practices that you would suggest specifically for processing anger, for processing anxiety, and then as a way to really relax before transitioning into sleep mode.
Yeah. So, one practice that I love to do, and this would work for anxiety or anger, um, judgment, fear, any of the, I'm going to just say like negative, but they're just emotions. So, I'm not totally labeling them, but any of those things that we don't necessarily want to feel.
Yeah.
I love to, as I'm breathing, so I like to do a in and out just through my mouth. So you can
Mhm.
put on some nice calming music, maybe something with a little bit of a beat. But as you're breathing in and out through your mouth, you're talking to anxiety, right? So if you were to do it, it would be like, and really keeping that breath going. Nice, consistent, strong breath. And talking to anxiety, I always ask it, why are you here? Like
Yeah.
anxiety, why are you here? Anger, why are you here? And then just listen,
Yeah.
right? Listen to the response. It might say, I'm scared. It might say, I'm, I'm not feeling heard, right? So just talk to it. Why are you here? Then I like to ask it, what do you need me to know? Right?
Mhm.
What do you need me to know right now? Right?
Yeah.
Because obviously something's been triggered or activated. It's trying to get your attention. Our normal behavior is just to push it away, pick up a phone, numb it.
Right.
It's trying to get our attention. So, why are you here? What do you need me to know? And then ask it, what do you need to feel safe to leave my body? And just listening, it might need space. Maybe it just needs to be recognized. Maybe it's like, I need you to leave this house. I
Right.
need you to go get some space. I need you to feed yourself. like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just the goal here is to listen to it. Um, just like so many of us, these parts want to be seen and heard and validated, not shoved down.
Yeah.
So using that active breath, so in and out through your mouth, and then if it feels good, you can use that exhale to start to release it. So almost imagine that anxiety and like use your abs. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't really
Yeah.
see. I'm like clenching, like use your body to push it out. And even if you can release 1%, 2%, maybe you release it all, use that as a win. That is a great start. Okay. And then bedtime breath work, changing that breath pattern up to in through your nose and out through your mouth. So more of a, and I encourage that one to be really nice, expanded, nice and slow, full breath in. Maybe you even want to sigh and make an audible noise. Even when we make that noise, our body's like, ah. So repeating that a few times and just, I always like to release what is no longer serving me today. So maybe I fumbled on my words, or I was just saying rain came and splashed all over my couch. Maybe I want to release that. It's like, what am I releasing today? So using that exhale, letting it go. And then I always end my day breathing in gratitude. So as I release what's no longer serving me, I'm not carrying it into my dreams, I'm not carrying it into my next day, releasing it. And then I'm bringing in gratitude, right? So, what are you grateful for today? Even if it's one thing,
Yeah.
just focus on that one thing and breathe it in, like feel yourself pulling it in, right? And then like sending it out. So, pulling in that gratitude, letting it move through your whole body. And I always think that that's such like a peaceful way to end our day.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, those are all so helpful. And I love the like inhale, creating space, exhale, release.
Mm,
I find it so helpful to add that intention and that reminder, and especially with what you shared with anger and fear and the heavy emotions. It's so common that they just want to be heard, that we just
yeah.
want to be witnessed, that really it's often something from childhood. And I'm like, hand on heart, because for me, my inner self is like,
Mm-hmm.
my little self is here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's often just the reminder to check back in and listen and notice, okay, what do I need? And like it might literally just be a deep breath and a hand on heart and that reassurance of like, I'm safe.
Yeah.
Like so commonly when we're triggered, it's a part of us from childhood that didn't feel safe that just keeps getting re-triggered. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful how that breath and that reminder can create so much more peace.
Yeah.
And I love too that you were sharing a breath practice that wasn't overly expressive. Because
Mm.
sometimes when we think of processing anger or if we think of processing anxiety, it might be that it needs to be this big thing because the energy might feel that way. But it can still be super grounded with that level of like, not force, but just like firmness. Like, I don't know how to
Yeah. I
explain, just like the
think it's like the
strongness.
intention. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's just really beautiful. So I appreciate you sharing those. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the ones that I also share with clients for anxiety is also humming. I find
Mhm.
humming to be so soothing,
Yeah.
and it helps move some of the jumpy energy to feel grounded. And I love also using for bedtime to build on your practice. So similar. I love it so much. Like, oh my God, so good. Um, Another one that I'll do as well is like inhale for 4 and exhale for like 8 and just
Yes.
real,
Really slow things down.
yeah. Because sometimes, yeah, counting can be a great way to focus attention.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of
I
like our counting sheep back in the day.
exactly,
We
yeah,
didn't even know we were doing breath work when we were counting
right.
sheep, but we were.
I know. That's what I was thinking when I reflect on it. If there are
Yeah.
nights that I'm more restless, I'm like, oh, this is literally a breathing practice. All
Yeah.
right.
There we go. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. That's amazing. So just before we sign off, I'd love if you'd like to share what's maybe a key misunderstanding that you hear around breathwork that you'd like to debunk for listeners today.
Mm, I think we touched on it a little bit, but that it's got to be this intense experience.
Mhm.
I I think it scares people
Mhm.
from trying it because it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't look safe.
Right.
Right? So if you are following on social media and you're looking at all these groups and these people who are having big releases, um, that isn't all that it is, right? And it doesn't have to be a big, intense experience, at least not right away.
Right.
And on the flip side of it, breathwork isn't always calm and peaceful. I think with everything, there is moderation and there is choice. And with the right um, facilitator, the right coach, you can make sure that you are receiving the support and the experience that is going to best serve you that day. And as a facilitator, that's something, and I'm sure you felt this too, that sometimes we go into a session and we're like, okay, we've been working up to it. Today's going to be the day. We're going to do a longer breath. And our client shows up and it's not, it's not the right thing for them today. And we have to also release our attachment for
Yeah.
the outcome. So just releasing your attachment of what has to happen is really, really important.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's so true. I think that's the biggest thing is just like let go of any ideas you might have around it and
Mm.
surrender to your own experience of it. Um, because there's so much beauty that comes through that space of surrender and just being curious to how
Mm-hmm.
things might flow and what more you might learn. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And everybody has different experiences. And I'm sure you've had this as well, where somebody's like, I don't think I'm doing it right. There is the way you're doing it is the way
perfect.
you're doing it, and it's great for you, and let it be. So, yeah,
Yeah,
surrender to the experience and trust that whatever your experience is today is the experience you needed to have.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that. Are there any final comments or just anything else you'd like to share as we start to wrap up our time together?
Um, I don't know. I think just try it. If you haven't tried breath work before, I highly recommend it. obviously. Um, if you
We're
have
both
tried
little
it and
biased.
had like a bad experience, find a safe person um, to guide you again. And yeah, I think it's just really amazing to see what people can uncover about themselves when they do practices like this, or yoga, or meditation, or sound healing. There's so many different modalities, but be brave enough to get to know the real you.
I love that. We'll end it on that for
There
sure.
you
So before we both sign off, how can listeners connect with you?
go. So I am fairly active on Instagram. So that's kind of be the best place to see some of my content or connect with me. So my Instagram is ashley.livingstone. I have a million E's in my name. So maybe we can put in the show notes.
Oh, yes, I will add
Uh,
it. Sure.
and then also like on my website, my email address is there. I am a real human. So every email, every DM, every comment comes right to me. And I'm pretty proud of that connection. So you send me a note, I will absolutely be the one to get back to you.
Beautiful. Well, there you have it. So thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of your knowledge and expertise around breathwork. And thank you again to all of our listeners tuning in. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found the content supportive for your own journey. Please download, like, share, comment, and reach out to us if you have questions, feedback, or would like further information. And the information is all included in the show notes here. So please click the bio for all of the information. And we will definitely see you again soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.